Way from Barcelona, Spain, so this is pretty exciting for us. Toni Sala lives in Barcelona and is the author of over a dozen novels and works of nonfiction. In 2005, he was awarded the National Literature Prize by the Catalan government, and he has received many other honors for his writing, including the 2014 Premis de la Crítica, Catalonia's most prestigious literary prize, for his newest novel, The Boys. He'll be reading from that tonight with us. Please welcome Toni.
Good night. Thanks.
Let's see which one you can use here, Toni.
I think I will read.
Like this is okay? All right.
Thank you. Well, I think the best of the night finished. So, thank you for the invitation, and excuse me because my English is very poor. I hope my reading will be better. I'll read 2 or 3 pages, and after, if you want to ask me something, I'll be more comfortable than making a speech. No? So, this is a book about death and how death conforms our personalities. And I'll read, it's about, the story is, there has been an accident where 2 young boys had died, and the book has 4 parts, and each part is one character and how the death of these boys affects them. The first character is a man about, I don't know, 50 or 55 years with 2 daughters, so he can be very affected about his death. And the part that I will read is when he drives to the place where has been this accident. At the beginning, he sees a girl. This girl is a prostitute, and well, I'll read. He drove slowly, searching for the site of the accident. He saw the girl by the side of the highway. She didn't look familiar at all. Thin, childlike, long curly hair, bright eyes, stuffed into a tight little white dress, with a bottle of water in one hand and a cell phone in the other. He could have touched her if he stuck his hand out of the car window. He had been thinking about the 2 brothers' death all morning, and now he was tired. One enters the adult world through death's door, through the assumption of the mysteries, the most simple and fantastic mysteries of life and death. Being an adult is accepting death, harboring it inside you like a cancer, dying. How could he accept that his own daughters were already adults, that they were already infected? Accept death? How could he? How can you accept something you don't understand? How can you continue to be a person if you accept the incomprehensible? Accepting death, it's accepting loneliness. And the commotion over the death of the 2 brothers was in fact his resistance to facing up to his own age, to his own death, his resistance to separating from his daughters, to the death of his daughters. Dying The brothers had freed their parents from killing them, as he would have to kill his daughters the day he died. He'd had them too old, almost 40. He'd made up his mind late with a younger wife. Now he was living in immaturity. He was on the uncomfortable border between two walls. He traveled to the world of his daughters, but what if they had actually grown up so much that they were no longer there? Was there anyone in that world he had fallen into? He passed the girl. The Pyrenees, the Guilleries, and the Montseny mountains suddenly appeared in view. They were experiencing the initial cold of the autumn turning to winter, with lunar eyes, a smattering of greys and impotent patches of sun. The highway bound together the fields with a ribbon of grief. The tall plane trees were the feathers of a buried monster, the scales of a transparent fish that fed on the earth like parasites. Two solitary poplars in the middle of the fields represented the two brothers' skeletons, whacked into the earth and touching each other with their branches. It had happened here, before him. The asphalt was streaked with tire marks. The brothers had put on the brakes before hitting the tree. They hadn't had an entirely treacherous death. The fierce screech had flown over the fields, appearing on the streets of Vidreres with such violence that the next day the townspeople found tire skid marks in the hallways of their homes, on their sofas, in their showers, on their sheets. Why had they put on the brakes? Had an animal crossed in their path? Was a car coming at them head-on? Had the brother who was driving nodded off, then woken up suddenly and tried to avoid the accident? They were speeding, fast as lightning. They crossed into the opposite lane, gone over the hard shoulder, and plowed into the trunk of a plane tree. The S's ended before the asphalt did. The brother who was driving had taken his foot off the brake pedal. Why had he released the brake? Why hadn't he held out until the final moment? Had he given up? Had he understood that there was nothing he could do? Not even soften the blow, no matter how slightly? Or is it that when there is nothing to be done, the body relaxes and accepts its fate? Or did the driver want to escape the car? Did he want to get out in that half of a second? Half of a second? What is half of a second? But did he try to anyway? You have to do something with the time, no matter how little there is, something to feel that desperate wait, a moment like that, and perhaps his body focus on that rift. Did his whole being shrink painfully to get through it and leap out of the car in half a second? The driver didn't know what half a second was. He had no idea. no one does. No one knows what half a second is. Life is made up of half seconds. Life is half a second. But it turns out that he had no idea. How long would it last? Did he have time? Perhaps he wasn't wearing his seat belt. What luck! In the panic, the idea traveled at the speed of light. He became porous and ramified his brain. His blood became adrenaline, dynamite. He flew the half second, or what was left of the half second, the longest half second of his life. Half a second of explosions, half a second that the driver would have lengthened or shortened infinitely, but was only able to turn into the best utilized half a second, the most lived half second of his life, a terrific farewell, the skull awaiting the ballot, a half second that never reaches its end, but will be over at any moment when you least expect it, suddenly. But what do you do in the meantime? How do you spend it? The more you concentrate on it, the longer it becomes. And you hope. You can't give up hope. Half a second of perverse, labyrinthine corners, of torture chambers, vaults, and monstrous self-discoveries, of mirrors and windows, of halls that led to stairs. Half a second filled with alarms that rushed you, with loves forgotten until now, with friends who have come to say goodbye, who are waiting lined up on the branches of the plane tree. Half a second filled with ideas, with joys and unexpected comfort, with solutions, for example, suicide. But he doesn't have time to be dead. He won't even have time to escape, nor time to accept it, even though he left his mark on the asphalt, the oscillogram of the last seconds, the final signature. He heard the sound of braking that ran through the fields to Vidreras, to warn everyone, and smelled the burning rubber, and the brother who was driving thought of his parents. He cursed the disgrace and grief he was leaving behind, their lands, and how would they get along without him? He felt filled with rage for that which he could not prevent, for not being able to control the situation, for still being alive and not being able to do anything. And suddenly he remembered his brother. He was right beside him. He was with him. His hair stood on end when he grasped that. His brother, with eyes wide as saucers, scared out of his wits, just like him, suddenly realizing that it was all over. His brother trusted him. He couldn't change anything, and he couldn't give him the steering wheel. And he thought, now, how do I let him know that there's nothing to be done, when my body is so slow that I don't even have time to open my mouth? I only have half a second. How do I tell him that I want to leap out of the car and leave him here alone, that I've lost control, that it's my fault, this accident, that I am the one who will plow us into the tree? How do I confess to him that I've taken my foot off the pedal, and if I can, I'll abandon him without even saying goodbye. The car flew toward the tree's trunk.
Well, I have one. Was this based on an event that actually happened, or did you kind of imagine this based on just kind of news and general things?
Well, these accidents happens everywhere here. In fact, there was an accident in my hometown where I don't remember if it was one death or two. I remember the death were young, and the same as this character. I have a daughter, and that was very intense. And then I wasn't able to write a book about that in my hometown for the minimal respect to the families. So I moved the story maybe 25 kilometers and nothing in that. Of course, you need when you write, you need experience. Literature is made with two things. When I speak about literature, I mean the act of reading and the act of writing, that are very, very similar. I think more or less are the same, to write and to read. And in both cases, what you need is a strange equilibrium between experience and imagination, between reality and fiction. What's difficult is how not to pass too much the reality, because if you write only reality, then it becomes a chronicle, something boring or something scientific. No? The same way, if you do something too much imaginative, then you become a science fiction author. And well, this is I think when we read, we want to explore ourselves, no? And we don't know what exactly we find, if what we find is really real or if it's imagined. That makes me think about which part of us is really real or is imagined. Do you think death, for example, the topic of the death is very useful in this aspect, because anybody knows nothing about it, no? There is this philosopher, Epicurus, a Greek philosopher, that said once, death, you have not to care about death, because when you are here, death is not here. And when death is here, you are not there. So don't worry about death. In this aspect, it's easy to speak about death, because you can say everything and anyone can prove, no? And it's a way to know also ourselves. I think that the confrontation with death is something that makes us understand better who we are. When you grow and you have the first experiences with death, you certainly notice that. No, if I have answered that.
And is this your first? Oh, is there somebody else?
Well, when you write nonfiction, do you have a difficult time setting aside the imaginative, or does your nonfiction also include both? I'm
Yes.
sorry, I don't know the...
No. One of my problems is that I am not sure when I'm writing if I am making fiction or non-fiction. And this is something people don't believe it, but it's true. It's true. I think it's because of this I can make chronicles, or because I don't see very much the difference between these two. Once I wrote a biography about a famous gorilla that was in Barcelona. It was a white gorilla called a snowflake. Yes, this was the only one in the world that had this. I don't remember the name. That when people albino. It was albino. And well, the gorilla was old and was going to die, and the publisher told him, why don't you write about this gorilla, no? And I accepted, and I wrote the first autobiography of a gorilla, because I did it in first person. No? But the thing is that this book appeared in a collection of biographies. Really, besides, I don't know, the George Bush biography, and well, that for me, and later I wrote a book about three artists. It was a non-fiction book, clearly non-fiction book, and they published it in a collection of fiction. It's true. You can Google it, you can see. So I don't know. I don't know. I think the main thing is to confront this fiction and non-fiction, and to be able to put together, no, and not being ridiculous with this, no. Of course, if you exceed in some of the aspects, it's fatal. It's like life, no. It's something very literary topic. This the difference between reality and fiction, and how fiction affects reality. In fact, death is the only way to speak of death is writing. All we know about death, if we know something, or if you can speak about death, it's through the literature. It's like love. No? Love, where is love? Everybody has seen. It's not mathematics. It's literature is another thing that we need. We need, because we need to know, for example, that we will die. Borges was right. Once said, if we would not die, all would be nonsense. Because, for example, this I'm doing now, no, being here would be unnecessary. I could now, I don't know, go away and say nothing, or it's the same what I would do here, because being immortal, it's true that all will pass. No? It will be, we will have every possibility. So every action that we do, would not have sense. Because you know, if instead of doing something you don't do it, doesn't matter, because another day, being immortal, so infinite, another day you will do this. No? So we need that to know that we have some. It seems paradoxical, no? But we have some transcendence. No? We know there is something more than us. No? We know that when we will die, and the world will not die. This is something that makes us, we have something more than us. And it's interesting. It's the possibility of transcendence. That's why. Sorry about this.
I have two questions. My first question is the Snowflake biography available in English?
Yeah?
Okay, I'm gonna get it.
No, it's not in English. No,
Not
it's
in
not
English,
translated.
no.
You have to learn Catalan.
Okay.
Yes, in Catalan,
And then
not
that's-
even in Spanish.
Yeah, a related question is, I'm always interested in words that don't translate from their original language into other languages. They just don't have an equivalent. Because your book is very introspective and reflecting, was there any words or concepts that you found didn't translate in the English very easily?
Well, you know, when you see my poor English, I don't know if I can notice this, no? The thing I know is this kind of book would not be comprehensible without a good translator. And I'm sure that Mara Leden had done a very good translation. In fact, we were working together because she was living in Barcelona for almost 10 years. She's married with a Spanish boy, and was the fact that you understand because literature works with tiny things, no? With very, very precise things. And then if there is not a good translator, I think the book would not, what's the word? Would not go. Wouldn't work. Thank you.
It sounds like a very good translation.
Thank you so much, Toni. We appreciate it. Toni,